tell us how AI is helping us identify the people that could be spared of having to return.
So I want to riff for a second. I'm going to answer that, but I want to share some breaking news, because very recently there was a large randomized control trial that basically produced evidence to exactly what you said. So your intuition was literally borne out in the data recently. Okay, so this is a big RCT that was just done up here in Massachusetts, just published in JAMA. And what did they do? So what they did was they took patients of a low-income community. It's called Chelsea, which is like right on the north side of Boston, mostly Latino community. And they randomized these patients. And the randomization had two arms. One, nothing. Second arm, a little bit of money, like $200 a month. What happened? Two big things over the course of just 9 months. Two things happened. The group that was randomized to the $200 arm, they showed up in the ER much less often. So all those $3,000 visits did happen. And they got, even if they went to the ER, they did not get hospitalized anywhere near as often. And by the way, average hospitalization costs $10K, $10,000, right? So we're not talking bankrolling people here. You know what I mean?
Right.
We're not talking bankrolling. We're talking literally giving people a little bit of breathing room. And what you're going to get on the back end of that is huge cost savings. So let's put the morals. First of all, there's a whole moral argument that we could and should have. But let's focus in on what's the big thing that folks are trying to think about right now. National debt. How do we balance the budget? How do we cut costs? Okay, well, sometimes cutting costs means making smart investments, you know? And so anyway, I think that's really inspiring. And this is just one of several studies in this money as medicine movement that have been published recently. But to your question of how are we using AI, man, I could talk about this all day. So first of all, let's think about this. So there's about $80 billion in these federal funds that are unused every year. The way we look at it at Link Health, we have two states that we operate in, Massachusetts and Texas. You might be thinking, why in the hell would you be in such disparate states? But that is the point. The point we're trying to make is we can do this in both. We can do this anywhere. And it's successful. Anywhere. We purposefully were like, let's do it. You know, we're going to Texas. We know what the background is. We know what people are going to say if this works in Massachusetts. So let's talk to the haters before they talk to us. So the bottom line is this. We've identified these 9 different benefit programs. Things like rental assistance, $7,000, a year to just keep you from being evicted. Things like LIHEAP, the Low Income Home Energy Assistance Program. That's $2,000 a year to help defray the costs of your heating, cooling, electricity bills. Things like Lifeline, which is $111, helps you pay your phone bill, helps you pay your internet bill. Bottom line is 9 programs, right? So let's get into the weeds a little bit. Each of these 9 programs, they all have the same thing. They all have a goddamn application that must be filled out, right? Checked and submit. What do you think the questions are, Sanjay? They're all the same. It's name, address, date of birth, phone number, etc. Right? This is a perfect example, perfect opportunity to leverage large language models. Why? Because my navigators, we have about 75 trained certified patient navigators. They can have the one-on-one conversation with the patient. They can build the trust with the patient. They can help that patient get over their fears or demystify some of these application processes. But my navigator does not want to do 8 different applications at once. They don't have the time to have a conversation about SNAP and then ask the 20 questions, and then a conversation about LIHEAP and ask those 20 questions, and then a conversation about rental assistance and ask those 20 questions. Would it be easier if you could just kind of ask the same questions that are used across all of the applications? And that input, that ingested, those answers could then be pushed out to all of the relevant benefit applications you're eligible for, and then the AI can submit them on your behalf, right? So the idea is, really at the end of the day, it's called benefit stacking. If we work with you to fill out your rental assistance application, Well, we can, if you qualify, we can apply your answers to the 3 or 4 or sometimes 5 other benefit applications that you also qualify for. And then when we hit submit, it's not just for the rental application. It's for the rental application, it's for Lifeline, it's for SNAP, it's for Medicare Savings Program, et cetera, et cetera. That's one concrete example. We've got some others that I could share, but I've been blabbering on for a bit here.
So I need to back up and let everyone understand and appreciate this, because it's something that I didn't think of until this discussion. The link that I'm drawing here it's called link with the word health intentionally in it. And you may say, but you just talked about a bunch of stuff that has nothing to do with medical expenses on the patient. But and correct me if I'm wrong, what I'm piecing together is, because of the data that's shown that, and the statistics you started with on how much is due to means that are unprovided or unable to be, executed in day-to-day life, somehow the hospital system and emergency rooms are taking the burden of a lot of this. Like that needs to be clear to everybody, that the burden is falling on the hospital or emergency room system.
And let me just say one thing to add to that.
Please.
It's falling on you, the taxpayer.
That was my second point, because what I want to then draw that line to is,
right,
please understand that the people that we're talking about, for whatever reason, this is free judgment. I'm at least that way. I know you are, but for whatever reason, they're not the ones that do have the private insurance or everything else. It's because those standards, they're way more frequently have Medicaid, correct? So that's my second assumption. The whole point is Medicaid. Now, let me do a third thing in case people are unaware. Medicaid is a federal thing. You may be hearing this $80 billion and are saying well, there's no more money, like Doge, take it out. It's like, that's a waste of money. But the thing is, if it's federal, but the losses with Medicaid are also federal, and guess what? We're all paying for it. If we're employed and having these statuses, there's loss there. There's loss in the tax dollars. And number 3 is another one that maybe you can't say because I know you're a data-driven guy, but hospitals and the expenses for things are going up and up and up for the people that have private insurance, because it is the only way to stay in the green for a hospital for all the red that it loses. Well, I think Mark Cuban said this. I saw a podcast with him saying it. He's like, y'all understand that the loss incurred due to expenses that are unfulfilled fall in the hospital, and they don't have any other way to hedge against that or to make up for it other than try to make it up in other areas, which is why when I went for CT, where I thought I had appendicitis, I've never gone to the ER that often, but I'll say it embarrassingly, they said it was completely negative, which I'm like, impossible. We need AI. But it cost me like $2,700. And this was like a year out of fellowship. So that hurt. But they go up and up. And there's a lot of post trending where people are like, well, apparently it's 1,300, or this, if you're uninsured, it's this much, then why is it more if you're insured? Because that's the only way they stay afloat. So this hurts you in multiple ways on your tax dollars and whatever. And that 80 billion, I just need to say it again, it's already been demonstrated on randomized controlled trials, if you believe anything about research data or science, that goes away to what sounds like not only 1-to-1, but a 2 to 3 to 4 times return on the losses sustained by the federal government. So and the federal government is one major entity, and this is why this is such a big and justifiably important topic right now, right, in our climate as of March 2025. So what this is doing is to help the overall costs, in addition to what we're not even talking about, because unfortunately it's not as important, and that's my opinion, that moral and ethical piece of it all. But healthcare is that way too. I've had to learn that the hard way. The healthcare system in general, practicing everything, is bottom dollar. And when you accept that, that's when you can make effective change. If you get upset about it, nothing's going to change. You got to play that. You got to learn that game and then start playing chess and with that language. So I think that's an amazing utility of AI. The second thing that I'm thinking out loud, and I don't know if you've had any thought or encounter with this, but there's this whole, I think, a little bit overcorrection on this whole data sharing piece and all of these things. But you could imagine, if I just poof like a genie for a moment, said all of those 40 to 50% of people that were going to the ER and causing these the highest expenses, if in fact they are the ones that could actually not have to come to a large degree due to these programs, imagine what the world would look like, because now you're still doing it correlative. Okay, least income, Medicaid, and we know that's the trend, so we're going to overlay it this way, because you can't go a layer underneath, because there's some of those individuals that just suffer on their own and don't go to the ER or don't use it for social support. But you're having to go one degree of separation away. Imagine if you're able to really identify, and that's a whole other conversation we can have, later or some other time. But that's where I think identification of things and people, especially in the AI era, is so important for cost, for health, for precision therapy, everything. And it's very insulated. Right? We'll never be able to know what those 45% frequent flyers are. And if in fact, having these services would actually make that go away.